Hey, Hey, what's up, and welcome to this episode of EST, the podcast for established church leaders by established church leaders. My name is Josh.
That's all, folks.
I assume that we're going to get that cut later, but I started the show just tongue
No, I'm gonna leave it
tied.
in.
Just
We're one
because.
take.
Hey, I'm good
For
with that. I'm
for
good with
all
that.
of our
I'm really good.
listeners, we don't hardly ever edit in the history of this podcast. I don't even know 3 times, 4 times, maybe, maybe.
I honestly couldn't name one time we've ever edited the show. And it's never been for you or I. It's always been like a guest accidentally said something or something like that.
Yeah, some cuss word slipped out or whatever.
I was eating lunch with a pastor, it's a different denomination. And he just cussed. Like, it was just one of those unusual. Now, for our tribe, there's curse words that go around from pastors. It's not unusual, but I was just taken aback on a first meeting. So, anyways, welcome to the show. We have a great sponsor, Church
We
Teams.
do. We're going to be talking about the future of sermon preparation and delivery, and guess who can get you into the future of technology?
Church Teams.
Church Teams. That's right. And hey, we are very grateful that Church Teams will remain a sponsor as we move the podcast over to Rainer on Leadership. So if you just happen to be listening to this or watching it on YouTube, Josh and I are still going to be doing this show, but it's going to be over at Rainer on Leadership. So don't unsubscribe here. We may pop back over at some point. But go subscribe at Rainer on Leadership. Josh and I will be over there. And we'll go into 2 days a week on content. So 2 days a week. And Church Teams will remain a sponsor. So we certainly want to thank Church Teams and Boyd Pelly and his crew for being a part of this show. They have a software solution for you. If you're wondering about the future of technology, they have an answer. So go to churchteams.com and check them out.
Yeah. Good stuff. All right. So, hey, I was listening to a sermon the other day. Actually, I found this sermon. This preacher was awarded by her seminary as the best preacher. And then she was also given some sort of like Oxford, it was something like in England, award on her preaching. And so I thought, well, shoot fire. I need to go hear this preacher. This preacher's got to be one of the very best. And so I went over and listened to some of her sermons that were posted to her website. And I'm not going to get into the quality of the sermon, but the length of the sermon really caught me. So it got me when you were like, hey, let's talk about the future sermons. One of the things I was thinking about we're going to cover later on is length, but sermons and preachings definitely are changing. It feels like there is a difference with new seminarians coming out, the way they're preaching, what's popular. Maybe social media has something to do with this. I don't know. But got a pretty cool topic today.
Yeah, I think a lot's going to change in the next 5 years, both with preparation and delivery. And I'm going to kick it off with something that is, underutilized right now, although well known and completely misunderstood, which is artificial intelligence and AI. And there are tools out there that can help you write sermons utilizing AI. There are some ethical considerations there, obviously. I think that AI can be useful, or it can be a plagiarism tool. It's all in how you use it. But I do think in the next 5 years, in terms of the preparation side, every pastor is going to have to answer that question. Am I going to use AI? And if I do, to what degree? So where are you on the, where do you draw the line ethically with AI? Do you use it? Do you not use it?
Yeah, I use it. To me, I think it's become a mountain out of a molehill. I don't remember us having some of these. Obviously, I wasn't preaching at the time, but like when word processing became a thing, and then you got like Clippy, and we never had this like issue with like using technology and it becoming ethical. I think that this one definitely has some ramifications. Some of my feedback on this is I've seen the preaching tools out there, little websites that are like, look, AI powered research, AI powered whatever. And in reality, I don't know, 6 or 7 of them, a handful of different AI powered preaching resources. I've signed up for the free version, which is all the features, and I tried to use it for a week or two, or just try to like kind of implement it. I'm already done with my sermon. So what if I had used this tool to write my sermon? Very underwhelming. Like, I just thought it was atrocious. It's just not anything that is maybe up to the level yet of a well-trained, experienced preacher. I think that there's just something that we develop over time that AI is just not able. It's like AI drawing fingers and hands. It's just really bad at it. And God was really much better at it. I'll also say that I use Logos as a study research for my library, and they had some AI powered features that they were kind of pushing into things. Again, underwhelming. I don't think it's there yet. So I use AI regularly. Normally it's Gemini, Google's AI. I will type newsletters into it, and I'll say, hey, edit this for grammar and spelling. And then I'll type out my whole newsletter right straight into it. It spits it back out. I copy that and I send it over to it. I've also used it probably maybe once a month on an illustration. And I'll ask it. So I see artificial intelligence right now in its current state as a very lackluster research assistant. It'll pull some ideas, but you need to go confirm those and see where they lead. But it is helpful for generating some ideas, at least in my part, and then definitely some grammar and spelling. So how about you? Do you use it at all?
Very little, if at all. So in my mind, AI is always derivative. So it can never be original. By design, it is unoriginal because it is always pulling from something that already exists. Now, someone could say, that's every sermon that's ever been written. We're all reading the New American Commentary, or we're all listening to John MacArthur and Tim Keller, and we're pulling from them too. And I would say that's a fair point. But in my mind, it is good when used as a derivative tool. So let me give you an example. I've written a sermon. I've got a manuscript, and I want to write a 200-word newsletter article to my people about the sermon. And so I feed it my sermon. I say, write a newsletter article based upon this manuscript, and then it spits it out. Well, that's fine. That's you using your own work as a derivative tool. You're using AI with your own stuff to create something that, 300 people are going to read, 400 people, whatever the newsletter, how many ever it reaches. And it's a fine thing to do. And I've done that from time to time. I still like to write my own stuff. I very rarely use AI to write my own stuff. So I think that's one good use of it. Another good use of it is, man, I've written this manuscript. I cannot come up with a title. Hey, AI, here's my manuscript, or here's my outline. Give me a title with a good hook. And we use that for marketing emails at Church Answers. Help me out with this subject line, help me out with this point. But where I think you cross the line is where it starts writing the sermon for you, and it's no longer derivative. You're no longer asking it to do derivative work. You're asking for it to do original work. And I think that's where you got to make that distinction. The second you start asking AI to do original work for you and not derivative work, you've crossed an ethical boundary and you're using it in a way that you shouldn't.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, we talk a lot. If you've gone to seminary, or if you've taken preaching courses, or maybe listening to like Preaching Source, those sort of podcasts, preaching is an art, and the source, the text, the scriptures, that's point A. All right, that's where we're starting. But then you read it. All of us come to the text with some preconceived ideas and some theology and that sort of stuff. So just think of your theology. I'm a Baptist. I'm going to read the Bible through a Baptist lens. But then the sermon comes out through my personality and my experience and that seasoning on that. The best that AI can do I really feel like the best that you can do, and you could trust it to some level, is to ask it questions of maybe the Bible just from a factual standpoint. Like how many times is this word used in Scripture, or are there other stories in the Bible where this is a theme? It'll give you ideas, but again, I mean, Logos is a better tool for that. There are better tools for that, and you're not sure the theology, because theology is not just our belief on what this verse says. Theology is our beliefs on how all these verses fit together in a holistic worldview and that sort of stuff. That is very suspect. So I just would strongly, strongly caution anybody from using AI. Say, I'm going to preach a sermon on Colossians 1. Give me an outline. You might be able to get a little devotional out of that, but I would not preach that. And to date, I have not ever used the AI stuff. I've played with it a lot. Like when I'm done with my sermon, I love to reload the stuff back through there and go, what would you have done? Or well, let me tell you this. Here's another. I have told AI, here's my 5 points or 3 points. I'm wanting this sort of pattern. Could you help me come up with words that would fit this pattern, either to do an alliteration or to do a theme in my points? And it's great at that. It'll kind of build those kind of things out. So I've used that kind of stuff, but I don't even preach that. That's just for my mnemonic.
Yeah, and that's a derivative work. That's
Right.
you picking up a modern thesaurus and trying to figure out a new word. That is a perfect use of AI. I'll take it a step further, and we do need to move on to the next point, but I'll take it a step further and say that if you are asking AI to write sermon outlines for you, you are plagiarizing and you are being unethical.
Yeah.
And you need to stop immediately. It's not only not a good idea, you're cheapening God's word, you're cheating your church, and I would argue you're making some very unethical and questionable decisions. So write your own stuff. Write your own stuff, and then use AI for derivative work, not original work. All right, next point. All right, future of sermon preparation and delivery. More video. There's going to be a lot more video in the next 5 years. And I don't think there's any way around that. I think it's more good than bad. Where AI, to me, is, hey, it's all in how you use it. It's kind of like the internet. Could be good, could be bad. I see video as more churches putting out videos as a positive thing. What say you?
Are you talking about like video illustrations, or are you talking about like sermon clips?
No, I'm talking about actually posting the sermon online, posting teaching online, but you could also say incorporating more video into sermons, although I
I think that's on
would
its way
say,
out.
yeah, I think that's more on it. Yeah, I definitely think that's more. I think that was 10, 15 years ago.
Right.
Where, hey,
So I was kind of confused. When you
watch
started.
this clip from this movie and then we're going to talk about it. If you are still doing an At the Movies series,
Come on.
I just want to
doing
say,
Yeah.
let me just get on that soapbox here. You
This
are
is one of
you
your
are
favorite soapbox.
It is. It's the most unoriginal,
Yeah,
uninspiring, lack of creativity. Like, we're doing At the Movies this summer. It's like, whoa, I've never heard of that
Shut
before.
the front door. Yeah.
I can't believe it. Yeah, you
No,
need
I
to
think
stop.
you're right on the sermon clips. I like those. I think they're cool. They give you a good kind of taste. You're able to share them. People listen to them, and it's just with our social media being all about reels and scrolling through things. If you can get those clips real well, that's good. Now, caution, preachers out there, caution: do not preach for the clips. Don't build your sermon. Don't, man, this will be that zinger. There's a couple preachers out there that I know that I call them Instagram preachers, because it sounds like they're just constantly quoting Instagram reels or being like that. Don't do that. Preach the word. And then, and if something good comes out of that, something marketable or clippy, then clip it. That's fine. But don't get your cart before your horse, or else you're just going to be going backwards.
Yeah, I like the idea of more Bible teaching on YouTube, not less.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I like that.
I would love for the algorithms to start kicking sermons to people. So I'm actually in favor of this. Obviously, you want to do a good job, and you don't want to post your AI generated sermons online because that's bad. But I think more video is good.
Plagiarized sermons, yeah, people will know.
And don't do the at the movie series. That's
All right.
all right. Third, and this one's going to be a bit controversial. Less concern for the unchurched when preaching. And I want to explain this because it's a good and a bad thing. Probably more bad than good, but there's a reason. There's some reasoning behind this. One, only 1% of churches have an ongoing evangelism emphasis. So churches are not like bringing in the unchurched. And any church that says they are the church for the unchurched is marketing to people who are already churched, not the unchurched.
It is. It is.
Because the unchurched are like, there's a church for me. I'm going to go there.
Yeah.
Let's stop. Let's go.
Yeah,
No,
yeah.
like
Everybody.
you're that's code language for we're the cool church. So I would just say, one, churches need to do more evangelism. Every church needs an ongoing evangelism emphasis. And once churches start doing evangelism and people are inviting their friends and people are sharing their faith and there are a lot of unchurched in the building, then the sermon needs to be considerate of the unchurched. But that is not the vast majority of churches. So, I'm one where I would say preaching is first for the saints and only secondarily for the unchurched. So the good side of this is the church is the gathering of the saints for the glory of God. That's the Sunday morning or Saturday night, whatever your experience, wherever it happens. That's for the people of God. Now, I love it when unbelievers come and hear the gospel. Right. That's a good thing. But the preaching of the word is primarily for the believers. Yeah. And so I think that there's going to be a movement in that direction. My only caution would be, man, let's not go so inward here that we stop focusing on people that need the Lord. Yeah, every sermon needs a gospel presentation.
I agree. I really can't add anything to that. I preach primarily to Christians. When I'm building my sermon, it is motivating Christians to live their lives according to Scripture and to then go out to the lost, go out to the unchurched. You go out, be compelled to be ambassadors. So I'm completely cool with this. The whole idea of building a whole worship service around lost folks, I've never subscribed to that theory. I think it leads to very superficial churches, and so build it around.
And it never worked in the first place.
It doesn't work. But I'll tell you what has worked for 2,000 years is teaching Christian Scripture and the doctrines and compelling them to go out and live their lives in accordance to those. So do that. I think your small groups and in particular your small group fellowships are perfect for inviting the lost friends into that, showing and sharing the gospel, and then bringing them to the church where the pastors and the elders can preach the doctrines. So it's an upside down theory. It seems upside down. I think it's more biblical, but I'm completely in favor of that. What's our fourth one?
Shorter length. And please, Lord, let this happen. Maybe this is more hopeful than predictive. Yeah. But good grief. I mean, I feel like when I go 35, 36 minutes, I'm like, that was too long. I did not need that extra 4 minutes. 28 to 32 minutes. That's my rhythm. I realize that may not be everyone else's rhythm. Yours may be 24 to 28. Or you may say, actually, I'm pretty good at 35. Hey, good for you. Everyone's going to be a little different there. But I can say this with confidence. We don't need every pastor out there preaching 45, 50 minutes. Mm-mm. And you're probably, and if you're thinking, no, I'm the one that needs to. No, you're probably not. Mm-hmm. If you think you really need to preach that long, then you probably don't. It's just too long. It's, there's so much fluff. And by the way, if that's all meat, people can't digest it. It's too much anyway. So either you've got a lot of padding in there or you're giving people too much.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I'm one of those, you preach as long as you keep everybody's attention. It's just usually us preachers are not the ones that are good at determining that. And we don't have a mechanism that lets other people know. I mean, obviously, I do think that better preaching does lead to larger congregations. People come, they want to hear. And I think that but I also think that bad preaching that's just entertaining and stuff can also lead to that. So I get that this is full of problems. I'll be honest with you, Sam. I don't even want to look and see what I average to preach because I feel like it's probably too long. But
ask your staff, ask your worship pastor.
I bet my worship pastor knows exactly how long I normally preach.
Yeah, mine does.
I truly believe that I don't know. The compliments I get on my preaching are not just fluff. So I feel like I'm hitting a sweet spot. I think that like what I did notice that preacher that I told you about at the top of the show, her sermons when I was scrolling through were averaging like 11 to 12 minutes, and I was like, this is extremely short, and so that's just unusual. I actually went and looked at their services. I watched their services, a couple of them, and they had another person every service. Somebody gave like about a 10 to 12 minute testimony. So it's just a different way to do it. I'm not here to critique that, but it was unusual. I think 12 minutes is probably really, really short on the sermon side of things.
It is, but if you have a legitimate testimony every week that is inspiring and God glorifying,
Yeah,
I don't mind that.
right.
It all depends on like how well are you able to execute this. But if it works, then I say that's fine. That's somebody. That's basically somebody doing your opening and closing illustration.
Yeah.
With the meat in the middle, you just happen to have a little different structure to it. I probably have about 10 minutes, 8 to 10 minutes of illustrations.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. That's not
So if that's how they're handling it at that particular church, that's different, but I like it. One thing we do that's different, and this really isn't a trend, so this is not the future of sermon delivery, but there's one song. We do our video announcements, then we do a live host, we do one song, and then I preach. And then everything else in the service flows from that at West Bradenton. We do that because we've got a lot of, like 30 to 40% of our church is 18 and under. So those little kids get antsy at the end of the service, the ones that are in the service. So it enables, like if there's a lot of music at the end, they can stand on the pew and jump up and down, and it's not a problem. If they're doing that during the sermon, it is somewhat distracting, although it doesn't bother me all that much. I'm just glad they're there. But I don't think that's a trend. But I think shorter length is. I think there will be people that will be more intentional in the next 5 years to go 30 minutes instead of 40 minutes, 35 minutes instead of 45 minutes.
And all I would add to that is just be more intentional about good sermons. Just there's so many sources out there, resources that you can learn to cut the fluff and things that don't need to be said. So if we can get better sermons, the length will take care of itself.
All right, last thing, and this is something that excites me, more exegetical series. I think because people are not there every week, they're there every other week, because we're not inviting people to church the way that we should, and I hope we start doing that. I think you're going to see more people, more pastors, particularly younger pastors, I'm just going to go through Matthew's gospel. I'm going to go through the book of Joshua. And
first half is great.
Gonna...
The last half is really rough.
Yeah, whatever it is.
It's very hard.
I used to be 50-50, topical and narrative and character studies and then exegetical. And I have moved more like 75% exegetical and 25% topical, only because it just works better in our church. Somebody's like, oh, yeah, I missed, you're going through John's gospel and I missed chapter 4. But I'm picking up in chapter 5 and I can go back because there's more video now. I can go back and listen to the 2 other sermons or 3 other sermons that I missed. So I just think that it works better in today's world with people not coming as frequently, although they should, and picking up through the series online where they missed. So I think this is more a good thing than a bad thing, although this is a whole nother episode. I'd like for us to solve the frequency problem and get people there almost every week instead of like every other week.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. Now, I'm convictionally exegetical. The particular school I went to, if they found out I was preaching a topical series, they'd call and take my degree away. So they're not allowed.
I like to preach topical series.
And some folks do. In fact, next year I have a couple series planned for the first time ever. I'm going to do a couple topical series next year. So I'm convictionally exegetical. However, I feel like this exegetical trend is going to be just that. It's a trend. It's similar to how Matt Chandler used to joke about how our kids are not going to get tattoos because they're going to think everybody who gets tattoos is old. And everybody my age, everybody got a tattoo because our parents didn't have them. I really feel like there's a generation of younger pastors, preachers that are coming about that are just thinking it's so retro, it's so old school to just preach through Ezekiel or to go through like John or I'm going to do something crazy like just through the Gospels. They're going to feel like it's so old school and retro that they're going to kind of do that. It's going to be more out of a trend and something that feels retro and vintage than it is going to be out of a conviction. But either way, I am for it. I love it. Just preach through the scripture. That's the way to do it.
All right, there we go. The future of sermon preparation and delivery over the next 5 years. Thanks for tuning in. By the way, don't forget, we're switching over to Rainer on Leadership. Go subscribe to that podcast. Josh and I will be having the same conversation that we always do over there. We certainly want to thank our sponsor, Church Teams. We're bringing Church Teams with us because we believe in them so much, and I'm very grateful that they're making that transition with us. And we do have a few more episodes here, though, so we're going to do this through the end of the year. So Stay tuned, and we do have a nice little surprise for the last couple of episodes.
I wouldn't say it's a
Some of you-
little surprise.
It's a big.
I believe
it's a
it's that
big
normally
surprise. And
very-
if you've been with us since the very beginning, you probably know what we're talking about. So
You may know. All right. Thanks so much for listening. We will catch you next week. Peace.